It's been a minute. When it rains, it pours. Lost my hard drive, lost my job, lost my dog, lost my mom, lost my underwear. I don't know. I made up most of that. But we're back. Instead of buying a new hard drive, I decided to buy a fancy pants iPad versus a not so fancy pants iPad. So hopefully we could edit everything on the iPad. That's the hope. So if you're watching this, that means it was successful, ish. But you'll find out before I find out because this was pre-recorded. So anyway, I had an idea. Justin Woody, he's one of our listeners. I just try to swat some lint. Asked about weathering tracks, and that's kind of like a weird thing because I think that tracks are kind of difficult-ish, I believe, because I think that most people will either paint them brown, and or they will, which I used to do as a kid, or they'll kind of like create a paste and then kind of glop it all over. Now, it's really kind of neat because like if you think about it, what is mud on tracks? Well, it's glop on tracks. And that's good. And so, of course, like if you want something to look realistic, you take glop and you put it on tracks as per what would normally happen if it was in the field doing real worldy type stuff. But as a kid, I grew up in a construction company, and my dad decided that he could cut a lot of wages if he put his 6-year-old son in a backhoe. Needless to say, I almost knocked over one dump truck that was being driven by my sister. So anyway, I spent a lot of time staring at muddy tracks. But something I've noticed was that when you just glop things over a track plate, it doesn't replicate reality in that like tracks aren't a static plane in which shit is glopped on. They move, they have hinges, and so what you end up going on is like you have these two track plates and they have stuff caked on top, and they bend, they twist, they vibrate, and as they're doing that, the stuff on the track plate itself is settling, but the stuff in between is not. So you have this nice cake here, you have this nice cake here, and in between there's a bunch of crap. And so then you also have like stuff falling off the periphery, and it doesn't quite look the same. Like it just doesn't, like when you just glop stuff on, it's kind of a pain in the ass. So one option is to go and on every single tiny little track plate, cake just a little bit of mud. That sounds like a pain in the ass. Not a fan. I'm sure it would look amazing. If you really wanted to put that much effort on this guy, you could, and I would be impressed and think you were amazing. I, for one, am going to walk you halfway in between. So what we want to do is we want to replicate the drying mud effect in paint without having the three-dimensional glopped compound on there. So what I want to go through is I want it to look as though it's starting to dry, because as you get older and thinning dirt mud, it's going to be drier, and so it's generally going to look lighter. And then as it gets thicker, you have more water retention, and so the thicker stuff, which is generally going to be mostly in the recesses and mostly on the surface of the plate, is going to be darker. So we have about a 5-step process, and that's actually removing 2 steps. Well, I'm sorry, it's removing 2 steps and adding 1, which will be the rusting effect. I think maybe I'm wrong, but anyway. So let's take a look at that. Okay. All right. So here are the 5 paints we're going to use. I think like a lot of these, it drives some people crazy, but here's some craft paint that I use. And you can find like a GW one if you really want to. You can, I don't care, whatever. So this is kind of like a burnt umber, I believe, that I'm going to use. Then the mid-tone is just, I don't know, I think it's just like a brown. I don't know what you would call it. Just some nice medium brown. And then terracotta. So this is going to be the bulk of your mud. And so I think when you're out there buying paints for this, just try to find, get your dark brown, the darkest brown you can. Get a relatively light brown without being, like darker than a, well, if it's terracotta, great. But, like a light leather it might be fine. But if you're getting into like, skin tone. I use quotations because not everybody has the same skin tone. The cracker skin, there we go. So if you get that color, if you're getting like that sandy almond color, it's probably too light. So try to stick with something that's like a light brown. And then, you know, just like something in between, like try to find like the in between of these two. You could, if you wanted to, just mix them. I like having just like because this isn't going to be like a perfect mixture of the colors. It's going to, hopefully it's a good mixture of the values, but not the colors. So anyway, that's what you're after. And then we do have some GW paints. And these are Fancy Pants paints. So we're going to be using a little bit of Typhus Corrosion and some Bloodletter. I like Typhus Corrosion is nice. I like the technical paint. So it does have like that, it has a color that's interesting. I really appreciate it. I don't know how you'd mix it normally, but it also has like that little bit of grit. And since we're not going to be like adding any actual texture outside of Typhus Corrosion, you know, like it's just nice to have like a extra layer of grime to it. And then the Bloodletter, you know, an orange glaze would be nice. An orange wash would be nice. We're going to be using this towards the end to replicate rust, because I cut out 2 steps in the beginning, and those 2 steps are making this shit look rusty. So this will fill in the gaps. So let's start by getting a fatty brush. So this is your tank brush, hopefully one that's all messed up anyway. I guess it'd be a little bit smaller than a tank brush, but then we take your tank. We're gonna plop this off for now. Magnetized. So Chimera. So we have most of the rusting and stuff going on there. Then we are going to start with dried paint. So I'm sorry, not the dried paint, the dried dirt. So start with this. So this is kind of different than you're probably used to. At least it's different than what I'm used to. Because I typically start with dark and work my way light. So we are going to do a heavy brush. It's like a dry brush, but not quite. And we're going to kind of stipple it a little bit, and you do a little bit of dry brushing. There we go. So this is, yeah, that should look good. Try to get it, you know, like here's the, I think that's, I can't remember what those are called, but basically it's where dirt falls out of the track. Cards up here. Put a little bit, let's see, so your track is coming up this way, you know, the motion is this way, so it's going to be dragging dirt this way as it travels along the Chimera. And so you probably want it to get a little bit, this is going to be more of a dry brush along the hull back here. And then, yeah. There we go. And then it's going to taper off up here. By then, a lot of it's like fallen off, so it's not as important to get it too heavy. You know, if you just want to do some little scatters. And then it really starts to fall again over here. Oops, I'm sorry. Over here a little bit. And then that's about it. Get the front here where it's running into dirt berms. There you go. And then let's go over back here. Maybe they're backing into things, or it's just kicking up. Okay. All right. I'm only gonna do. Fuck it. Let's just do the other side real quick. It's only gonna do half of it, but it really goes pretty fast. Nice thing is those were just painted, so they still have a little bit of a little bit rigid. Oops, I think I might have added a little bit too much there. That's all right. It's dirt. It's never consistent. I'm actually doing a pretty healthy helping of dry dirt on this guy. Okay, I think I might. Oh, that's good. That's good. Okay, so there we are. There's our dried dirt. And you don't have to worry too much that you didn't get it perfect down here. Next step, you can imagine, we're gonna go backwards. So let's get your medium. Oh shoot, I haven't used this in a while, so I'm gonna just bring a little bit of this out. Put it on my palette, wipe it off on my pants a little bit. I'm an artist, I'm allowed to be dirty. Okay, and and kind of get it in here. And now the thing with this one is you don't really want to get all the way up the track. You don't want to cover the terracotta color too much. I mean, you do kind of want a little bit of a presence, but for the most part, you just... Sorry, I keep going back and forth. I think I promised you guys at one point that if we start making money on these, I will invest in a different camera other than my DSLR. I think we're getting there. I was really surprised. You guys have, the numbers have really bumped up. Like, even though I hadn't been making any videos for a while. Thank you so much, guys. And thanks for the kind words. Like, sometimes I feel, you know, like the internet can be kind of a cruel place, but you guys have been really, really generous and inspiring. Thank you. Like all the kind comments and questions. I love questions. Like anytime, you know, that shows me that you're interested, you know, like it shows me that you're engaged. If you want to see something, if there's something that doesn't make sense, like, yeah, I love it. That's why I do this. Okay, so there we are. Starting to look kind of muddy. Oh shoot, you know what I should do? I should have gone back here. I'm sorry. Should have got the whole track. Now, here's the thing. I'm not actually going to cover the track with this terracotta. I do want to put a little bit of this in here. Because it's weird having no dirt on your track. I used to, when I did the rust, I would go through and paint the whole thing kind of a brown. And then, or kind of like a brick red brown. And then I would go through and do some dry brush and do some other things and kind of like work it from dark to light. And then, you know, as we're doing here, we're going from light to dark. Oops, a little too much paint. Wipe it off on the pants. So, but I cut all that out. And now we're just going to do this. Okay. All right. I think that's... There we go. Okay. So now we got, let's go back and hit that real quick with our medium brown. Okay, track. Okay, so, all right. So see, as you can see, like this is going like really fast, right? Like it did not take much time. I love it because it even though, you know, it's more realistic than if you just put brown on here. In my opinion, it's somewhat more realistic than if you did like and this okay. So with the dark brown, the burnt umber, we're going to do more of a stipple than a dry brush. But anyway, so as I was saying, it's in a way, for me, it looks a little bit more realistic, but it's not realistic. Like, whereas if you glop stuff on there without doing like each individual track plate, like I was suggesting, you know, I mean, it's real, and, you know, but it's still, the physics aren't realistic. And so for me, it falls apart right there. You know, it's like sometimes if you don't try hard enough, things look better than if you try too hard and fail. But just don't hit the mark, you know? Like a cartoon looks better than a poorly digitized face, you know? Like, don't even try. It looks really good. If you have like a shitty digitization of a face, like, oh God. So we're signaling dirt, but we're not actually painting, or we're not actually applying a dirt-like substance. Sorry, sometimes it's hard to form sentences while I'm painting. I've never been very good at multitasking. All right, so this goes really fast. We're gonna let this dry before we go on to the next step, but we still have a little bit of paint to put on. And then here's where we're gonna put like a kind of a heavy brush. So we want it to really catch the edges of the track plate. See that? Like it's you know, if you were normally if you do a dry brush, you get that light color going on, and it would really catch those edges. It's hard to see, but here we're kind of going backwards with it. I love it. I love it, love it, love it. I love that dirty effect. It's dirty! Actually, I'm trying to get this done before, like this whole thing done before tonight. This is it's a commission, so I'd like to have it, be able to pass it off to my client. There we go. Ta-da! All right, so let's give this just a moment to set up, and we'll come back to the next step. All right, so now we're on to the magic. Sorry, I took a little bit of a break to fix the dozer blade too. So here is... So here, sorry, I had to adjust my camera. So we're just going to glop some of this on here. Go ahead and water it down just a little bit. We are going to use the glaze as a wash, so yeah, here we are. Okay, now it's starting to come along. And just get the whole track, and if it gets a little bit on the, everywhere else, that's fine too. I kind of feel like this might not have been the exact color I used last time. I thought it was more of an orangey, like a lighter orange. We could go over a little bit of yellow with so this was actually, like, discovering this was kind of a happy accident. It was like a Bob Rossism. But I was going through and, like, I was starting to do all that mud and everything. And I was looking at it like, wait, I just totally forgot the rust part. So I grabbed this paint, this wash, and just threw it in there. And I'm like, oh, no, actually that kind of works a little bit. Yeah, there you go. I think it looks good. I think it's nice and proper. I think it's one of the neat things about this this glaze is, for me, like it almost like picks up the dark a little bit more. Like I don't know what about it, and just it blends them together, but not the values. So I think it becomes a little bit more obvious that where the color difference or the value differences are. It feels a little bit more intentional, I suppose. And the nice thing is it also gets in the cracks, so you don't have like that white blaring through from the overspray. I guess it really is an overspray if you're intending to do it, huh? I'm intending to cover this thing in mostly white and gray. Base color, not overspray. Okay. Alright. This is really unnecessary down below, but I'm just going to do it anyway. Okay. So, we have to let this dry. Normally I don't mind if it's a little, if you get a little bit of color everywhere else, but if you decide to take this and put the last step on here, it's going to turn into a muddy mess. And though we are replicating mud, we don't want that much mud, so it's a controlled chaos. All right, we'll give it a few, come back. Okay, so here it is, the secret sauce. Oh man, so we're gonna, if you're used to just like globbing this on, we're gonna take a little bit different approach to it. So pop it open, and we're gonna throw a little bit of water on our palette. And then, shit. It's like Little Shop of Horrors, feed me. Eat my typhus corrosion. So now we're gonna get it up in here, and we're gonna use it as a wash. Just kind of traipse it in there, and we're gonna add water to it as we go. And we want this. See how, I don't know if you can tell, but you can kind of see in parts where there's like, there's a flat edge. We want to feather it in a little bit. So I clean my brush off, add a little bit of water, and then kind of feather it so we don't get that hard edge. I want to chop it up because, I mean, this shit's, it's dirty. It's not clean. What are we doing? We don't want clean edges. All right. So here we go. Hit the other side. Clean edges. But that's okay. So wash out the brush. Fix the edges. There we go. Just run a little bit along here. I don't really care if that's clean or not. No, I do care. Okay. Okay. Isn't it fun watching my internal dialogue? Like, I want to do this. No, I don't. So I saw one guy that he was doing buildings, and when he would do a wash, it was kind of interesting, like the way he would do it, as opposed to the way I do it. Is that it's like I don't know, multiple personalities over here. But he would take and water the entire building down, and then add the wash. And the cool thing about that was that the wash, what did it do? It did cool stuff. It kind of feathered by itself. So the pigment, almost like watercolor in a way, it would just kind of become more opaque where you enter the or introduce the pigment versus like the just kind of bleed out and fade. So that was kind of a neat approach. I haven't tried doing that much, but that's a neat idea. And then I use a really watered down version and just kind of go over the track a little bit. You don't have to be too accurate with this. Alright. Oops. Notice I didn't do a very good job of painting down here, so I'll go ahead and use this as a excuse to get it to look right. Okay, so let's go ahead and let this dry and see what the final product looks like. All right. You know what's great? I actually picked this up and by the dozer blade, and I was going to show you all the mud, and the dozer blade failed, and the whole thing just fell on the floor. So we're going to edit that part out, but tell you all about it. Anyway, so there it is, the muddy Chimera. What do you think? Does it look convincing? I know we're not like caked in mud, but it has like that. Oh gosh, the colors! I really thoroughly enjoy the colors on these. It's normally when I do stuff, I'm like, oh, okay, cool, right on. But I think this is like a formula that I thoroughly enjoy. So I wish I knew what a lot of the GW versions of stuff was. At least with like Terracotta. If you have like a good Terracotta answer to Terracotta in your stash, please put it in the comments below. That would probably help people out quite a bit. So if you have also with like Burnt Umber, like what's the GW version of Burnt Umber? So yeah, if you could leave all those in the comments, that'd be awesome. You'd be helping other people out quite a bit. But that's it. Let me know, are these helpful? Are these interesting? Do you want more of them? I know like the videos that seem to do really well are the conversion videos and the put together videos of new stuff. But it seems like, once things are no longer new, they're no longer interesting. So is this more like what you want, or I don't know, we'll probably keep doing both of them because new stuff's fun. It's fun for me too, but it's also it's a lot of work to like try to come up with something really fast before everybody loses interest. Anyway, welcome back and thanks for having me back.